looking at Judges chapter 4 today, and we will get into 5, I think. Beginning in verse 1, it says, after Ehud died, you know, Ehud was last week. Okay, he died. The Israelites once again did evil in the eyes of the Lord, so the Lord sold them into the hands of Jabin, a king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor. The commander of his army was Sisera, who lived in, because he had 900 iron chariots and had cruelly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years, they cried to the Lord for help. All right, sound familiar? It is familiar. It's the same pattern. Jabin is the king, and Sisera is the commander of the forces. Do you remember a couple of weeks ago, we touched on the iron chariots, and I said we would come back to those iron chariots. We are now back to the iron chariots, which shows I'm at least honest, if nothing else. All right. Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lipidov, was leading Israel at that time. She held court under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites came to her to have their disputes decided. Here is the unique one of the more unique judges of the judges for a couple of reasons. One, it's a female judge. Secondly, she actually is a judge in the sense that she settles disputes between parties that are in conflict. So it makes her doubly special from all the other judges in that regard. Now, one of the things that apparently Deborah was blessed with was wisdom. Not that the others haven't had some wisdom, but she seems to have had a special amount of wisdom in that God put her in charge of making these decisions regarding what the disputes between the people. Now, we're not sure, there's no way to know, whether her house was under that palm tree or that's where she sat in an open air system for them to come to her with their disputes to be settled. She sent for Barak, son of Abdon, from Kadesh in Naphtali, and said to him, the Lord, the God of Israel, commands you, go take with you 10,000 men to Naphtali and Zebulun, and lead the way to Mount Tabor. I will lure Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, with his chariots and his troops to the Kadesh River and give him into your hands. Deborah goes to Barak and asks him or tells him to prepare for battle. She being a woman, she does not really want to lead, or God does not want her to lead physically an army into battle, but the battle's going to have to happen. So she's commissioned to conscript, if you will, Barak to follow through. Now, the interesting part is that Barak is told that God will deliver Sisera into his hand. There's no any doubt who's going to win the battles. God sells the Israelites into the foreign nation, one nation or another, in this case, Caleb. And when you're sold, you're gone. I mean, it's not like you can negotiate it. It's not like you can put on more armor, get a sharper sword, or a better piece of artillery. The reality is God has made the decision. God's made the decision now to take it the other way. And he says, I'm going to deliver him into your hand, into their hand. Now he says, take 10,000 men with you. It's interesting that he has a specific number. Apparently 10,000 was the right number. Or that's how many it's going to take to win this battle. He didn't say 10,001, he didn't say 9,999. He says exactly 10,000 will get the job done. Well, we know it doesn't take 10,000. God doesn't say it takes 10,000. We're gonna have battles where it took a whole lot less. We had one last week where one guy took out 400 or 500 people by himself. So God's deciding, and why God picks the numbers he picks, only God knows. And there's no explanation here for it. Mount Tabor is going to be the battlefield. And he said, I'm going to bring Sisera to you. You're not going to have to chase him. He'll come to you, and you'll be able to defeat him there. It'll be swift. It won't take long, but it'll be very decisive. You will win the battle. Sisera, doing exactly as Deborah predicted, should have increased Barak's confidence that God would give him the victory. In other words, when he lays it all out, he doesn't leave anything for, well, wonder how, why, who, what. God said, here's how many it's going to take. Here's what I'm going to do. All you got to do is just be there, show up, and look like you're going to fight somebody. It'll be all taken care of. However, Barak said to her, if you go with me, I will go. But if you don't go with me, I won't go. That's a good attitude. I want mommy and mom to go. You're there. So Deborah says, very well, I will go with you. But because of the way you are going about this, the honor will not be yours, for the Lord will hand Sisera over to a woman. So Deborah went with Barak to Kadesh, where he summoned Zebulun and Naphtali. 10,000 men followed him, and Deborah also went with him. So Deborah says, okay, mommy will go with you and hold your hand and get you there. But you understand that when I do, you're not going to get any credit for this. The credit will go to a woman. Now, in our world today, giving credit to a woman is not a big deal. We do it all the time. Women are in much in powerful positions. In fact, there are more women in powerful positions in America than there are men in terms of corporate ownership, money, and all that sort of thing. But in the time this was written, women had no standing at all. So the idea that you would allow a woman to take the credit for a battle is unbelievable. I mean, it's like he'll be the laughing stock of Israel and for generations thereafter that he didn't wasn't able to do this without Deborah's going with him. It was God's intent that men be the leaders. He meant it then, he means it now. Ever since Adam and Eve, God, that's the arrangement God has had. And there's much in today's world, in our particular society, there's much ballyhoo about that the Bible is very male-oriented, chauvinistic, all those kinds of things. And it is. Why? Because that's what God said. Now, we can like it or not like it. We can debate it. We can fight over it. But from the beginning, God said, man will be over woman. That's just what it says. And it's been that way since Adam and Eve, and it will continue to be that way from that point on. Now, when we say that, I'm going to make sure everybody knows that I'm not a male chauvinist pig. Just a male show. No. Forget the pig. No, the fact of the matter, we're not saying, in no way is God saying women are better than men, or that men are superior in intellect or in any other capacity, spiritually or otherwise. But what it does say is, in order to get things done, in order to have things accomplished, there has to be organization. God organized the society for men to be in charge. Why? Because he said in the beginning, because Eve submitted to Satan, that men would forever be over woman. Okay. Now, that's what he said. Anytime you have a team effort, someone has to be in charge of the team. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Everybody doesn't get to be the quarterback in football, or the pitcher, or the goalie in ice hockey. If you have everybody out there with the goalie mask on and nobody's going down the ice between the two goals, the game's going to be rather silly. And not going to be much game to it. So does that mean that when you look at the football team, for example, that the quarterback is superior to all the other players? No, because without the other players, the quarterback will be killed. Ask the Cowboys. So you know that it's not a matter of superiority. It's a matter of organization. And it has to be organized. So God sets it up this way in order for his will to be carried out in the most efficient manner possible. Now, the problem was seen from the beginning, and it hasn't changed a whole lot. This story is very relevant, in my opinion, to much of the problem that we're dealing with, both in our society and within the church, regarding the role of men and women in the church and in the society. When men advocate their role, women will take over, not because they're looking to take over necessarily. There are some that are, but not every woman is looking to be in charge. However, when the men don't do what God intended for the men to do, the women are left to go, well, if we don't do something, nothing will get done, so we'll get it done. It has been my experience within my many years of working with the church that the best way to get something done is to go to the ladies' Bible class. Okay, I mean, I'm not saying they take over, I'm not saying they judge, but you can count on them doing something. Okay, they're going to be actively involved in whatever you ask them, if they agree to do it. Okay. When you look at Garden of Eden, God told Adam and Eve, do not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Satan comes to Eve, Satan convinces Eve that it's going to be okay, and Eve takes the fruit, and where's Adam? I don't know if he was standing there next to her, or if he was on the other side of the garden, or he was off looking into the stars. I don't know where the man was. I know where he was supposed to be. And I know what he was supposed to do. He was supposed to keep that from happening. In other words, had he done his job that God intended for him to do, God would have slapped the fruit out of our hands that don't do that. Okay? But he didn't. He either wasn't there, or he was there and didn't care, or whatever. I don't know. But the point is that while it was his fault, and he is the one that fell into temptation, and she ate the fruit, all that is absolutely true. But the guilt also lies with the other individual there in the garden who was supposed to be her protector. He was supposed to take care of her as God intended. He didn't do his job. She messed up. And then, of course, he follows suit with her and goes, okay, well, it's good enough for you. It's good enough for me. And so then they both eat the fruit and they both fall away from God. In our society today, when men are reluctant to do things, women are oftentimes in the position of either watching nothing get done or taking charge to get it done. I will use an example which is not going to hurt, I hope, anyone's feelings, but it is a reality and has been for some time. It is next to impossible, and I have known both individuals who tried to get this accomplished. It is next to impossible, has been, to get men to wait on the table on Sunday morning. Now, this is not a tremendously difficult task. It does not take a lot of mental acuity to pass the trays throughout the. But I knew both men that are in charge, were in charge of getting people to do that. And it was next to impossible. So one of them said, if this keeps up, we'll have to get the women to do it. Now, and of course that's being done in congregations across the brotherhood. It's an interesting discussion as to whether a woman can do that or should do that or not. I don't think it's wise. I don't know that it's completely wrong. The question's been asked, how come a woman can pass the tray from side to side, but she can't do it from front to back? I mean, it does raise a question. You have to admit that the problem I would have with it isn't her ability or inability to pass the trays. But when you see women standing up the front ready to pass the trays or in the aisles, anyone coming in would not know at that point, okay, if I can say this is acceptable, what else are women doing? Okay, so I would be, if I were to come into the auditorium and see women passing the communion, I'm not saying that, the Bible doesn't say they can't. I don't know that that's usurping authority. I don't know that it's, all these other things that we have, but the issue would be the optics of it would indicate that if they're doing that, what else are they doing? And when they get past that, other things get to be a problem, okay? But I just point that out because I'm not saying it's always true, but there is the thinking that when you can't get men to do it, and really we do need that stuff passed around, how are you going to get it done? Well, I have a solution for that. I usually don't bring up problems I don't have solutions for. We didn't pass anything around during COVID. So obviously there is a way around it. No one liked to taste the bread, but we were able to accomplish the task without passing anything around. So it can be done. It's not, it doesn't relate, it doesn't come up to an impossibility of, well, we can't do it any other way. But that's my soapbox for the day on that. But I am concerned. I am seriously concerned because I see men and boys and young men who were in the past trained and looking forward to the opportunity of being able to pass the communion praise. Okay. In fact, that was, I'm not trying to make this sound bad at all, but that was one of the perks, if you will, of becoming a Christian. You were given a special opportunity that you didn't have before. Now, if that was the only reason you became a Christian, I would question that. Okay, so I'm not saying it was necessarily a good idea, but it was a perk. Came with the idea. Okay, my understanding from talking to these two gentlemen, their sons don't do it either. Okay, it's been said, why don't we get the high school kids to, high school boys to pass the grade? Well, they don't want to do it either. Why should they? Dad's not doing it. Why should they? They're following Dad's example. Dad doesn't do it, they don't do it. So this is something that's changed in our culture, because when I was much younger, that was one of the joys of becoming for boys to become Christian. Was this was something now they were allowed to participate in and could. So anyway, so much for my man-woman role in the church lesson for today. But I think that Deborah presents or illustrates the problem, and it's not new. It was back then and it's now. You have a guy who's supposed to follow through with the plan and he squirrels it up. Okay? And as a result, he doesn't get the praise that he was supposed to get for the victory, but didn't, due to his lack of willingness to follow God's instruction given to him through Deborah. Now, however, the Canaanite had left the other, Kenite, left the other Kenites, the descendants of Habab, Moses' brother-in-law, and pitched his tent by the great tree in that place. There's another place. Okay, I'll let you pronounce the word. When they told Sisera that Barak, son of Abimelech, yeah, that's good, had gone up to Mount Tabor, Sisera gathered together his 900 iron chariots and all the men with him from that location to the Kishon River. All right. Now, Barak is at the top of Mount Tabor. And if you know the topography, Mount Tabor, I'm told, I haven't actually been there to see it, so I don't know, but I'm told that it looks like Mount Tabor looks like a bowl turned upside down. You know what I mean? It's not a steep mountain, but it's got a plateau at the top, and then it sloped down to the ground below. And so you got one group sitting on this hill, mount, and you got the others coming up toward them. Now, when the iron chariots rode, not only were they hard to, couldn't attack the chariot very well, but also It said that they had blades sticking out of the spokes of the wheels, which would kind of slice and dice the army stand, or even horses, if they were on horses. It was slice and dice. And so to some degree, you've got a situation here of, if we put it into modern, not really modern warfare, but what we consider warfare, it would be much like having the infantry of the army going up against the tanks. In other words, you just can't get to the one driving the tank and there's too much armor around them and they're too well protected. That's what they were doing. So very successful. So then Deborah said to Barak, "Go, this is the day the Lord has given Sisera into your hand. Has not the Lord gone ahead of you?" So Barak went down Mount Tabor, followed by 10,000 men. At Barak's advance, the Lord routed Sisera and all his chariots and army by the sword, and Sisera abandoned the chariot and fled on foot. But Barak pursued the chariots and army as far as that location. All the troops of Sisera fell by the sword and one man left. All right, so who defeated Sisera? So the Israelites defeated Sisera, but it was because God put confusion into the minds of the enemy. And a confused enemy is something to be cherished. You always want your enemies to be confused. Now, from a military perspective, Barak is where, when this starts, he's at the top of Mount Tabor. Okay? Imagine the bowl. You know, I say the bowl because it gives you the idea of a slope, but it doesn't give you the idea of a steep, mountainous thing. Right? Any military strategist will tell you that you don't go down to the man chasing you. You're supposed to fight from higher ground. I mean, that's generally true. The guys at the top can usually beat the guys at the bottom. Rock things on them and roll rocks on them and all kinds of things like that. So you don't rush down the side to meet Sisera with these iron chariots. Instead, you wait for him to come to you. But whose army is this? This is God's army. God has some of the worst battle plans in the world. Okay? And he did not go to any sort of military academy at all to learn how to fight anything. Because he makes one mistake after another mistake after another mistake. Of course, he always wins, but he's just making these supposed mistakes. There is no one who would tell you that when you're being chased by an entire nation, that the thing for you to do is stand still. And yet God says to Moses, when they get to the Red Sea, stand still. I can well imagine how that went over with the military minds of the Israelites. I mean, they weren't too military, they weren't well trained in battle, but I think even they knew they should be building pontoons or something, build a bridge or something. We got to do something here. God says, stand still. Why? Because God wants to show who's in charge. If man fights the battle and wins, man gets the credit. But if man fights a stupid battle and fights it stupidly and still wins, man can't take credit for that. You have to give the credit where it belongs, and that's to God. So you see you can see here the idea of God wanting Israel to realize, yes, you won the battle, but it's only because I gave them to you. I routed them myself. I had them routed by giving them confusing information. Now, also, we're going to find out here a little bit. There's another factor. So we're going to come back to this battle a bit later, because in the next chapter, chapter 5, Deborah's going to have a song, and in that song, it's going to actually discuss what took place in addition to what you just read. All of that took place, but in addition to that, God involves himself in another aspect. All right, we'll come back to the battle in a bit. Now we need to see what happens to Sisera. It says Sisera left his chariot, which, by the way, is dumb. Okay? That is stupid. That's like having the army around you and getting out of the tank and trying to run off. The logical thing to do would be what? Even if you were in that position, what would the logical thing be? You take the tank with you and run over as many as you could, trying as you make your retreat. That's not what Sisera does. He leaves the chariot and he goes. Now, we're going to find out in the next chapter why he left the chariot. I mean, he's not as stupid as it sounds. There's a reason why he left the chariot. We'll get to that a little later. Sisera, however, fell put to tent of jail, the wife of Heber, the Kenite, because they were friendly relations between Jabin, king of Hazor, and the clan of Heber, the Kenite. Jael went to meet Sisera and said to him, "Come, my lord, come right in. Don't be afraid." So he entered her tent, and she put a covering over him. "I'm thirsty," he said. "Please give me some water." She opened a skin of milk, gave him a drink, and covered him up. "Stand in the doorway of the tent," he told her. "If someone comes by and asks you, is anyone here, say no." But Jael, Heber's wife, picked up a tent peg and a hammer and went quietly to him while he lay fast asleep, exhausted. She drove the peg through his temple into the ground, and he died. That's probably an understatement. Okay, that's certainly not hyperbole. All right, now, I want you to, of course, anything's possible. Don't get me wrong, anything's possible because God can use people however He wants. But if you ever thought about, maybe you've never thought about it, you know, I'm squirrely. I think of weird things. Have you ever wondered what Jael looked like? I mean, you'd like to think of her as a dainty little princess, right? Now, God can give her super strength, and she could have done whatever God wanted her to do. It wouldn't matter. But if you think of her in normal terms, I got a feeling Jael is kind of a bruiser individual. You know, I really do, because your average petite princess probably couldn't do what Jael does. Now, you got this guy asleep. Now he's tired. He's got to be really tired. Or else she spiked the milk. But the Bible doesn't say she spiked the milk, so we'll have to assume that he was tired. It does say he was exhausted, and that's exhausted. And so she's supposed to go watch out to let him know if somebody's coming. Well, instead, she is the person who comes. And I have had a difficult time ever understanding how you would do what she did. It would seem like you'd almost have to stand up to have enough force to push a peg through a guy's temple. I mean,
The temple, though, is probably the softest part of the
well,
skull.
yeah, but I know there's a lot of.
Yes, probably use hammers like that.
Yeah. Notice where the peg goes. It goes in his temple, but where does it end?
The ground.
In the ground. Now, that's why I say this is not a Daniel or Princess person, I don't think. But you gotta keep that, you gotta hold the peg and hit the peg with enough force. And it doesn't say how many times, how many shots she took it. You know, did she get him in one shot or did it take 3 or 4? I have no idea. But if it took more than one, I think he knew what was coming, but it was probably too late.
And I bet it was a big hammer.
I would think it would be a large peg.
Yeah.
And your temple is not that big, okay? I'm sorry, it's really not. So the whole, and this is why I say reading this and thinking about it, it does make you wonder a lot of things. But I admit, now if she could stand up and hit it like, you remember, and see, you can visualize this. You remember years ago, at the fair, they have the deal where you hit the deal with the hammer and it sends it up to a certain height. Okay, now is that how if she did that, how did she get the peg on his head to do that? And if she nailed him, literally, if she nailed him sitting down there by him, she was one strong lady to pull that off. So, and of course, God's involved. Don't get me wrong. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be her physical strength. It can be God's giving her additional power and all that sort of thing. So we don't know. But I find that whole thing fascinating. I've thought of that when I was a kid. I thought that's neat. And it taught me one thing: you don't ever go in somebody else's tent and take a nap. Okay, don't do it. I don't care how sleepy you are. You keep going till you get to the Motel 6, and don't stop just because a lady invites you into her tent. Anyway, so
Roger,
yes.
FYI, weather alert, there's baseball size hail at Reese's headed our way.
What?
Baseball side is hell headed our way.
Oh, well, we better leave. I mean, or I vote, let the Israelites go, but we better head home and not get caught in the hailstorm. So we'll leave jail and Cicero nailed to the ground. He won't go in there. And, we won't. The boys are gonna have a headache when he wakes up. Anyway, we'll pick it up from there next week, assuming we live through the hailstorm. Thank you.